Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Digital Classroom. Today it's not a live shoot. Hey, you see it. It's in my home, right? Today it's actually something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's about inspiration. It's about what makes me tick. It's about what might make you think. So, let's see what's going on today in Digital Classroom. Now, over the years, you've heard me talk a lot about technique, about stuff like retouching, styling on a budget and whatnot more. And when you visit our workshops, you can actually see that we have a lot with technique, styling. You see there's a pattern there. But where do you get your inspiration? And that's one of the parts that a lot of people ask me, like, hey Frank, we like to take photos, but how about inspiration? What can we do about, well, this set or that set? Well, it's very simple. Look around you and you will find inspiration wherever you look. So today I want to take you through some photographers and also some moments that inspired me immensely to take the photos that I take today. And I think you're actually gonna recognize some stuff. Hey Bert, welcome online. At first we always do the chat here. So let me rephrase that. When there are questions coming in, I will literally stop the broadcast and I will answer those questions. So feel free in the chat. That's the interactive part of Digital Classroom that we love. Feel free to ask any questions that you want. And Raymond is also there.
Hello.
And here we have Annewiek. Is everything okay?
You sound like a goat.
I sound like a what? Oh, is there some reverb on?
I don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound good.
Okay, it doesn't sound right. Okay, let me see. Is this better? Annewiek, can you listen now? Is this better for the audio? Okay, Jenny, hi. So Annewiek will check the audio now. She said there was a little bit of a weird distortion. Is that also with you guys? Is the audio okay on your side? Please let me know in the chat. There's always a little bit of a delay, of course, in the chat. So, okay. I don't see anything in the chat, so I guess it's okay now. Okay, let me just start with the broadcast. So today it's about inspiration, about moments, about things that inspire you to take better shots. So let's switch over to my iPad.
Yes,
and let's see. Okay, I think there was a little bit of feedback, so we now turn down all the volume on the monitors, so everything should be fine now. Okay, let's start. Okay, so moments in time. Now, one moment we all know. This moment. This was, of course, 9/11, and in all honesty, I always wanted to go to America, and this was the first time that we ever visited. Now, at that moment, I still only brought a video camera, because photography, not really my thing, and I loved video. When something like this happens, that literally changes the whole perspective you have on life, and it made me think, like, do I really want to do just video and make moving images, or do I want to make still images? And at that moment I actually decided, you know what, still images can be so more powerful, and we all know it, of course. Let's be totally honest. When we look at still images, and just look at this image, an image that can end the war, the napalm girl, or look at an image like this. It's insane how much connection you have with the model in this image, and those images will just stay in your mind. But those are the negative parts. Of course, in life there's also a lot of positive stuff. Now, when you look at my images, you see that I use a lot of different posing styles. I love to have a little bit more drama in my shots. So where does that come from? Well, in all honesty, that literally comes from stuff like this. I'm a huge Queen and Brian May fan. Now look at the lighting here. Lighting from above. Who thinks about that in a photo shoot? But just look at stage lighting. Look at the lighting they have on stage. See the backlighting? This is something, when I started doing this in my photography, a lot of people said, oh, I really don't like this. And I was going like, but when you see it from a guitar player or from a musician, you go like, hey, this is absolutely awesome. And now you say, I don't like it in a model shoot. Why not? So I just kept doing it. And as you can see in my style, it really evolved to something. But it's also about that power. So, for example, when you look here, smoke. Remember, I love smoke. I love gels. Live music. Steve Vai in this case. But there's more that you have to watch. Sometimes when you shoot portraits, it's always from that same angle. Why not shoot up, right? Like here. Use a slightly wider angle and you get some really amazing shots. Like here. And this is what I mean when I talk about the iconic shots. The shots that literally formed me. Later on we're going to talk about photographers. But first I wanted to get this out of the way. Because this is actually, before you know photographers, these are the images that you see. And the images where you fall in love with, for example, the musician, in this case, Queen for us. Look at that pose. Look at the lighting behind him. Just look at the whole shot. This is insane. Same here. And look at the moments. Look at the composition. Everything just fits together. You know exactly where he is. And I think that's one of the things that I just love about good live photography. You have to capture the moment, but you also have to capture the energy. You have to capture the arrogance, because let's be honest, the rock band is arrogant. Feel it, get it in your picture. And it really translates really well to model photography. But also here, look at those poses. We all know this, right? If I show you this picture, you all know this, because these are the iconic poses, right? So why not borrow them in your model photography? Of course, I'm not going to do a pose like Freddie here. But why not just steal it a little bit and make your model more fierce, make your model more stand out from the crowd, literally. Sometimes it's also, well, it also leads to something else. Like, for example, I just love this image so much that, of course, big on my wish list. There you go. So it's not only photography that inspires you to take better pictures. Pictures also inspire you to do other things in your life. Maybe start a music career. Maybe start playing guitar because you saw Jimi Hendrix doing stuff like, let me see where it is, stuff like this. Montreux, I believe it was Montreux. So these are all iconic images. These are images that are literally for me burned into my retina. I will never forget those images. Now this one, not so special. But remember when I showed you the guitar? Jimi Hendrix was, of course, for me connected to that white guitar. Yngwie Malmsteen I also liked, also connected to that white guitar. 1 and 1 makes 2. So when you combine your personal style with something that's already there, you can use it to enhance it. In this case, it just, well, enhanced me to buy a guitar. But, you know, that's part of the commercial part. Okay, so let's go through the photographers. Now, before we start with photography, there's something else. There's always something else. Okay, so let's go to, of course, a lot of people know this, Mr. Rembrandt. What can I say? Dutch master, beautiful, beautiful lighting. And also here, where are the eyes? Guys, if the image works, it doesn't really matter if you see the eyes. Now, I'm not one to have criticism on something, but in my opinion, this is a little bit too dark around the eyes. But hey, it's Rembrandt, right? So it's okay, it's cool. Same here, look at the images. Look at the composition, but also look at how with lighting he actually draws your attention towards your subject. You can use big softboxes to shoot, but why not make that lighting light that I do so much during the workshops. One big softbox to give you a little bit of extra detail, like the shadow slider in Lightroom, and one spot on your model. So really, really draw that attention towards it. So Rembrandt, without any doubt, a beautiful, beautiful painter. And of course we all know the Night Watchman, right? So look at those images, absolutely beautiful. Now you might wonder, hey Frank, I don't see a lot of those images in your photography. Yes and no. And why no? Because Rembrandt, for me, although he of course invented the Rembrandt triangle, did he invent the Rembrandt triangle? I don't know, we'll call it the Rembrandt triangle. But he's not my favorite painter. My favorite painter is actually somebody totally different and also the same. This gentleman, Caravaggio. Now look at the difference between Rembrandt. So Rembrandt was more, for me, a little bit more like a painter. This is something completely different. And this is something where you literally go into a more, it is a painting still, but it's also a little bit more. It's more three-dimensional, it's finer, it's like, it's more sharp, and it just gives you a much, much better overview. So let me go through This one. Here we have the same thing. Beautiful, beautiful image. And just that three-dimensionality. And look at the lighting. It's insane. You see very, very dark in the back. And then it becomes lighter in the front. And it's almost like there's like a spotlight on your model. And look at that shadow. One side is dark, one side is light. Is it 100% correctly lit? I don't know, but it looks amazing. And there was something else in Caravaggio's work that really drew my eyes, and that you will see in a lot of my images. And that's the very, very strong use of color. Just look at the reds. Do you see that over here? Look at that. The reds are, it's almost like he has a palette of colors, and all those palette of colors are from a do-it-yourself store. Right? They're okay, they're cheap, but hey, they work. And then that red color, when he uses that, that's the BMW or the Mercedes or the Tesla of cars, or in paint in this case. That's the really cool paint. And it jumps out like that. It's like, wow, that red, look at this. In all the images, they're very brutal, the images, I have to be honest. Look at the reds. And also look at the warmth in the images. This is color balance. He didn't use a color checker, I'm sure. And when he used the color checker, he probably went for the more warmer tints. But look at the reds. Again here. See? That red really, really jumps out. In all the images, or most of the images. But also look at the way that he paints compared to Rembrandt. It's more a drawing, like a very, very almost natural looking, it's almost like a photo. And the drama. Compare it to Rembrandt, where Rembrandt does beautiful work. Caravaggio is way over the top. It's like comparing a documentary on Discovery to a horror movie. He just shows everything, and it's brutal, it's insane, it's bloody, it's real life. So, Caravaggio. So we have Rembrandt and Caravaggio, painters. Now, one of the things that I highly, highly recommend you guys is look at the painters, because the painters started photography, right? What is photography? Photography is capturing one unique moment in time that will never come back again. So our job as a photographer is making sure that we capture that history, that we capture that unique moment in time. A painter, although it takes him longer, does exactly the same thing. Now there is, by the way, a really cool story about a painter. Let me switch over to our main camera for that, so you guys can look me in the eye when I tell this, because it always cracks me up a little bit. So this is for all the guys out there. Let me explain why I tell you this story. This morning I read that there was a photographer, a friend of a bride and groom, and they had a wedding, and she or he was actually invited to the wedding. And at one point the groom asked him or her, like, hey, can you take pictures during our wedding? And she was going like, yeah, well, normally I do dog portraits, but hey, I have a camera, why not? Okay, cool. Now, what price? And you know what, $250. Okay. I read this story this morning. It's just, it blows my mind it still happens. So during the wedding, she was treated like garbage. There was no place at the table. She couldn't get anything to drink. When she asked him like, hey, can I get 20 minutes off because I have to get something to drink? No, 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 we are doing something important now. Watch this, and you're a photographer. You have to choose, go or be a photographer. At that point, she deleted all the images in front of the groom and she walked out. Good for you. Why do I tell this story before I go into the photographers, and also before I went into the paintings to explain that? We as photographers capture that unique moment in time that will never come back again. That is worth something. Now, in the old days, there is this story where, let's say it was Caravaggio, I don't remember which painter it was. There was this really rich guy swimming in money, like Dagobert Duck or Scrooge McDuck. And he wanted to have a portrait of his wife. And he went to Caravaggio and he met up in a bar, so it should probably be Caravaggio. And he said, can you paint a picture of my wife? And Caravaggio said, yeah, sure, that's $200. Now at that point, $200 was like almost a house. But hey, it's Caravaggio, right? So the guy said, you know what? Okay, do it. So, well, his wife went there one day and came already home after 2-3 hours. And you know, with Caravaggio, you never know what happens. But the wife came home and, well, 2 days later, they met up in the bar again, and there was the painting. And it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful painting of his wife he ever saw. He looked at the painting and he was going like, oh man, this is beautiful. It must have taken you a lot of work. And Caravaggio went like, yeah, well, she posed for about half an hour. So imagine what happened in the rest, right? Caravaggio. And after that, well, we did some fine tuning and then we let it dry. And the rich guy just looked at him and went like, so I paid $200, the price of a whole house, for you to work one day? And Caravaggio looked at him and he said, no, it's not for that one day. It's for the 10 years I learned my craft. For the 10 years I invested in paint. For 10 years I invested in canvases. For 10 years I invested in models. For 10 years I invested in teachers to get where I am now. So I have to earn that all back. Guys, you as a photographer, you pay a lot of money for your gear, for online courses, workshops, whatnot more. It's very, very normal to ask a price for your work. Don't do it for free. And if you do it for free, well, next time charge money. Okay, let's go to the photographers that are really cool. Okay, I'm just going to start at the top because there is no real order for me. Annie Leibovitz. Now, I don't show every image that I like about her. I just went online and just got some images that really drew my mind. This is, I believe, for an ad commercial. I really like it that she transforms you into another world. It's totally different from Earth. It's almost like this is a spaceship that crashed somewhere and they are the lone survivors. It's just my mind going like berserk, and that's the cool thing. If your mind goes berserk, that works because then you are into storytelling mode. Also think about this, the Queen. So how do you photograph the Queen? Well, you don't ask if she can take away the tiara. If you saw the video, you know exactly what I mean. It was, I believe, one of the first things that she asked, and that was like, don't ever ask that. And the first thing she asked is, can you do that? So no. But in all honesty, it looks amazing. But it doesn't really convey me towards wow. And this is one of the things that I also struggle with. When I shoot a model, somehow we are much more easy to work with, a model, than when you have a celebrity, let alone the Queen in front of you. In essence, there shouldn't be any difference because the Queen wants a great portrait, right? So she has to cooperate with the photographer. And I think this is why always before I do a photo shoot, I try to learn my model a little bit. Get to know her a little bit. Make sure that she feels at ease. And then when we do the photo shoot, it just becomes so much easier to work with a model because they already know you. Okay, Annie Leibovitz. And of course also her black and white portraits, really, really nice. Family portrait, and somehow this one I think is way nicer than the one where the Queen is just posing. Okay, so again, there are only a few images, there are way more. If I wanted to show you everything I like about Annie Leibovitz, oh my, this should be 2-3 hours. Okay, now let me skip some. Let's go for Jill Greenberg. Oh yeah, Jill. I would love to meet her one day and talk to her about the images that she takes. Now, this is a style that I figured out, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm not going to say that I shoot it exactly the same, but I figured out what she was doing because somehow those images really pop, right? And it's a combination of colors, it's a combination of contrast. She does this really, really smart, and her images jump out by that. And this is where I learned how to separate with flat lighting your backdrop. And the main thing is sidelights. Now, when we are working with a black backdrop, what do you do to give a little bit more attention to your model? Make it three-dimensional, right? You create shadows. Now, what if you have flat lighting and a bright backdrop? How the heck do you create distance? How the heck do you create separation? By using sidelights. And it never dawned to me until I saw the Jill Greenberg work. And I was going like, that's it. That was what I was missing to make the models really jump out. And I started doing it, and in all honesty, I never stopped. But look at this, the expression. Now, the crying kids, we have to explain something like this. If you don't know this series, she actually gave, I believe, lollipops or candy to the kids and then took it away and took a picture when they started crying. I don't think it's really nice to do, but hey, I love the images. But she has so much more. Of course, you know this. The bear. Oh, I don't want to meet him. But also the horse. And you see that everything that she shows, it's flat, but it's so three-dimensional. It is, yes, It's flat, but it's very three-dimensional because somehow with her lighting, although she doesn't use a lot of shadows, by using the highlights, the opposite, it actually works. Now, one of the things that I believe in comics, I love comics, as you can see behind me, there was actually this agreement, I believe, that the cape of Batman in the older comics is actually blue, and of course it's not blue. The cape of Batman is black. We all know that, right? But still in the old comics it's blue. Now when you notice something about capes and stuff that's supposed to be black in the comic book characters, it's mostly blue. Now why did they do it? Now I don't know if this is the real story, but it sounds incredibly credible. Because in the old days with comics, how they printed it, they couldn't do black on black. So if Batman was in a very, very dark Gotham and he was throwing around his cape, it would literally disappear. So Batman wouldn't have a cape. In fact, Batman wouldn't even have a suit. So by creating the darkest blacks blue, they actually created that separation. Now, what you actually do with this kind of setup is she uses very, very flat lighting. But by using all these side lights, you create tension and you create a really, really nice three-dimensional pop. I think from all the photographers here, styling-wise, this was the one that I learned the most from. Although you don't see it a lot in my work, she really taught me by looking at her images how to make images pop from a relatively boring backdrop. And let's be honest, man, this looks absolutely amazing. Also look at the colors. That red really jumps, red again, see? That red really jumps out. I love the hair and that it comes back into the backdrop. This is something that I always like to do. Combine backdrop with foreground, create color contrast, create something that has a little bit of tension sometimes. And also here, it's flat, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's just insane what she does. It really pops. And also her black and whites. Now, talk about black and whites. Wow. Come on. Gels. She does it all, man. She's absolutely amazing. And those images too. And oh. Every time I look at them, I go like, I want to shoot. Not kids, by the way, like this, because again, I don't stand behind this. I don't want to make people cry. I want to make people laugh. But the bear, let's be honest. Man, when I saw her images with the monkeys for the first time and also with the bears, it's so insane that it looks like they are alive like people. And maybe this also triggers something in people to have a little bit more respect for nature. Because as you can see, nature is very, very close to us. Very close. I believe it's 1% difference in our DNA and we would be a bear. With some people, I actually doubt that it, you know what I mean, right? Anyway, so just look at this. I would probably run away from a bear like this, but hey, she didn't. And look at the images. I would love to do stuff like this. Just so nice and fluffy and black on black. Black on white. Very, very cool. And also here, you see that the highlights actually create a three-dimensionality. You know that this horse is blacker than night. This horse is totally black. But look at it. By setting up that little light here, you see how it just jumps out. Now remember, with a model, you can say, stay. Move a little bit to the, oh, stay. Okay, Annewiek, can you change the light there? Okay, yeah, cool. Annewiek, can you change the light? Oh, okay, awesome, just stay there. With a horse, Annewiek will probably run away after setting up the lights. The horse will probably move around. And then getting images like this just blows my mind, really. Maybe they use tranquilizers. No. Horses look really alive. But look at this, man. Look at the lighting. And that's Jill, of course. I think from all her work, somehow the monkeys, I also bought the book. The monkeys are just insane. They are so incredibly lifelike. Lifelike in, you know what I mean, like a human. The English is not my native tongue. Yeah, this reminds me of somebody. You know why I love these shots? You see them now, right? Beautiful. Expression, it's what I always tell people. If you take a picture of a model, make sure there's expression. And now you know why. Okay, cool. So that's Jill. Okay, let's go to somebody else. And now I have to give a little bit of a warning. If you are really sensitive, like you can't take anything. If you see a bikini, you start to freak out. maybe only listen to my voice at the moment and don't look at the images. And they're okay for 99% of the people, but if you feel like that, then the next photographer is probably not for you. But I would highly advise you to look. Okay, David LaChapelle. Now, without any doubt, David LaChapelle is my biggest influence ever. I would literally fly all over the world, except not now, to meet up with David LaChapelle for one very simple reason. He inspired me to do stuff that I would never dream possible. Let me tell you the story about this, and this is 100% accurate, 100% true. I was a member of a local photo club, and at that point we had to do a workshop in the forest with somebody that was okay, but let me put it this way, if he and I went into a forest, one of us wasn't coming back because he was so boring. So the other option was actually do model photography. Now at that point I was doing mostly monkeys, birds, and of course sports. And I didn't have any interest, and I mean literally no interest, zero, below zero about model photography, literally zero. Just before or just after, I don't recall this 100%, before the first workshop, I saw a documentary in The Hour of the Wolf. And we were staying at my parents' at that time to have dinner, I believe it was Sunday. And it was about a photographer. And I just asked my mom, like, hey mom, how long before dinner? Oh, at least an hour. And I was going like, okay, let's watch this documentary about a photographer. Hey, it's a fashion photographer. And okay, let's just watch it. From the first second on, I was glued to the screen. I never saw anything before. Because I was not shooting models, I always had this idea about model photography that it was just shooting dresses, shooting makeup, making girls look pretty. And to be totally honest, I'm not into the making girls look pretty. I'm into the creating freaking awesome photos, right? And I don't care if that's horror or science fiction or whatnot more. I don't want to make somebody just pretty. I want to make something cool. And I never saw that before because somehow, and that's what I mean by iconic shots when we started, sometimes it's embedded in your brain. It works like that. This was the first time I saw a model photographer, a fashion photographer, it's not really fashion, but a model photographer doing stuff where I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And you know, sometimes there's an advert in the Netherlands that's called, op dit moment weet je het, je wordt conducteur. Yeah, what actually means, at this moment you know you are going on the train to become a conductor. Nobody, of course, believes that, but at that moment there was this light bulb going off like, I want to be a photographer, I want to do model photography. And I started doing model photography. And actually when you look at this shot and you look at my portfolio, there's an image of a model called Marie. She's actually on a blue backdrop with toilet paper. Look at this shot, look at that blue backdrop. We actually bought backdrops that mimicked David LaChapelle. Still in our studio we have a pink backdrop. David LaChapelle. I love those colors, but also Jill Greenberg, which I found out about later. Just look at those images. And I think literally he shot like every single celebrity in the world. And this is also, I believe he stopped photography a few years ago and he started it up again. But he was just the photographer. If you weren't at David LaChapelle's, you're not a famous movie star or actor or whatever. You just didn't count if you didn't visit him. So look at those images. It's pop art. And one of his teachers actually was, of course, well, now I lost his name. Andy Warhol. There we go. Oops, how can I forget somebody like that? But hey, just look at those images. And I highly recommend checking out his books. Now I have to be honest, not all his books are my favorites. There are some books where I literally go like, yeah, I don't think so. This is not my style. But the other books like Hotel LaChapelle is just amazing. It's literally amazing. One of the models he works with a lot, Elton John. Just look at the images. If you're not inspired by stuff like this, sorry, do you have a heartbeat? You know, maybe it's not your style, but you can't deny it. This is just freaking awesome. Look at the detail. Look at his expression. Look at the poses. It's like everything is the backdrop. Everything is just 100% correct. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. That's insane. And although he does have a little bit more budget than I have, but I would love to do stuff like this. And there's so much story in these images. Yeah, David LaChapelle. Without any doubt, I think my number one influence. Without any doubt. Okay, let's continue. Dutch photographers. Now, we have many great photographers. And some photographers are, of course, well, iconic. And for the Netherlands, I think without any doubt, for me, that's Erwin Olaf. Now, when you look at his images, and I have to be honest that I don't like all his images, so I just got some images that I really, really like. Oh, DJ Fuba says, I just don't get it. And I think that's okay to say. David LaChapelle is somebody that has a very distinct style. It's over the top, it's almost hysterically screaming out with colors. I get it when you don't like it, but let's be honest, it does something with you when you see those colors. It's almost bleeding off your screen. And again, it could be that, oh, that's way too shouty or that's way too extreme. Awesome. But for me, that's it. And when you look at my work, it's much more toned down than his work. So although I'm inspired by him almost 99%, that part is really still not there. That's screaming. Okay, Erwin Olaf. I think this is a little bit more my style, a little bit more darker, although I like my models to be a little bit more moving around. But man, I love these shots. Look at this. It's so, we call it in the Netherlands ingetogen. I don't know the proper English term for it, but it's more held back. A little bit held back, like in yourself, turned into yourself. And this is Erwin Olaf, so Dutch photographer. Insanely talented. And those images are just insanely cool. And I say insane a lot because these are the images that really gets my heart pumping. Look at that. Beautiful. Also this, look at the guy in the back. Did you see him the first time? This is something that I love in photography, that when you look at an image the first time, you go like, ooh, nice. And then you look at it further and you go like, hey, there's somebody in the back. Oh, that's even nicer. And then you find somebody else in the other back, or in the top, or in the left, or maybe some scribbling in the balloon. I don't know if there's scribbling in the balloon. No. Yeah. And look at the dress also. You see how much care there is with all the highlights and all the shadows. It's light, dark, a little bit chiaroscuro. Just love that stuff. This was, I believe, about famous people and how they died. It's not a series where I... Let me be honest with this. Personally, I think it's not 100% kosher to earn money by other people how they died and by photographing it. I think it's a little bit shocking. On the other hand, I wanted to include the images because I do like them. But I think a lot of people will recognize the image and go, oh, that's Erwin Olaf, instead of going like, okay, nice images. Because these images literally were all over the place in news and whatnot more when they were released. So this is all the work from him. Not really my thing, but I wanted to throw it in just to show you guys also what he did before. But this is totally my thing. It's almost like a painting, almost at Caravaggio. If the reds would be just a little bit more vibrant, you have a perfect Caravaggio. And just look at this. Beautiful. And beautiful in the form of, it's that distance in, it's that almost not there. But you might wonder like, hey Frank, you have that connection with your models. You don't do that stuff. So where does that come from? Let me continue. Let me go to Mario Testino. So Mario Testino, I found out, I think, maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I was watching a documentary on the fashion channel, Fashion TV. And at that point I saw a photo shoot where he was backstage. I'm like, hey, that's interesting. Then there was this movie called the September issue. Okay, let me reset my picture very quickly. Because I think you lost picture. One moment, you will also lose audio, but then I will be back. 1 second, guys. Don't know what happened. Sometimes that happens. I hope it didn't went long on before I noticed it. Okay, so Mario Testino. Now you start to see where I'm going, right? You see that expression, you see that connection with the photographer. Wow. These images are so right in your face, so straight on powerful. This is the stuff that, as a photographer, you just love to shoot. At least me. Beautiful work, shadows, motion. I'm not a strong believer in smoking. I actually don't like smoking, but with photography it just looks so incredibly amazing. Let me see. Okay, that was somebody that mentioned that my image froze, but we found out. Okay, just look at this. And this actually reminds me a little bit of David LaChapelle. It's not so over the top, but it's close. You see that there are connection points there. Color. Color is everything, guys and girls. And then we do a black and white. Okay, great. Look at the toned down version. So a lot of photographers can be one-trick ponies. I actually like photographers that are not one-trick ponies. I like photographers that do a lot more, that are actually very, very flexible. And as you can see here, this is literally flexible. Diana, he shot a lot of images from Princess Di. And even an image that's not sharp. Do you see this? There's a lot of motion in that image. It's absolutely not sharp. This is somebody that most people will throw this image out. But just look at how great that image is. Look at that expression. Look at the whole posing. It's an insanely good image. And this is not fair. This is just absolutely not fair. That somebody can take a picture without even having a focus right, without even a composition right, and you love the image. It's just not fair. But again, that's Mario Testino. I just love this. Now, one of the things actually that one of the documentaries I saw about Mario Testino, and this was what freaked me out a little bit. So you guys know that I'm all about light meters. I'm all about using the cameras to their maximum. I love my Sony cameras because I can tweak around every setting. I can do so much with lighting in my Hensel strobes. I just love that stuff, right? And then you saw a video from Mario Testino. And you see somebody else setting his aperture. And you go like, what the heck? You see somebody else setting up his lighting. You go like, excuse me? You see somebody else doing this. And then you hear an interview and he goes like, yeah, I was totally terrified to shoot with strobes. Because with natural light I can control. And I was going like, this is the photographer that has the most covers of folk in the world. And he doesn't know how to control his lighting with strobes. But then, and this is the part that you have to remember, he doesn't know how to control his strobes? Yeah, sure. When you saw the image, everything was set up correctly. And he took a test shot and didn't like it. And in all honesty, it was an okay shot. Then he got this little light and he just started to move it around with his hand while shooting. And every image after that, the models were frozen perfectly. I believe he had 5 models jumping. They were all frozen perfectly. And that one little light, he just shined on certain people and they jumped out. And that's the part. This is the part that you have to remember. That little light was his spotlight. That light made sure that everything in the back was a little bit darker and that one model just jumped out. Hardly noticeable in some shots, but oh my, when you turn that light off. This is the true master. You don't have to know how your camera works. You don't have to know how your lighting works. As long as you know where to place that light. And you have a shitload of money so you can afford all those assistants. So for us, we have to know how light works, right? Because we can't afford all those assistants. Just look at those images. It's just insane. What about composition, right? This breaks almost every rule, but I love it. A little bit more simple, but still okay. Okay, next photographer. Let's go for our black and whites. So, of course, when you do black and whites, there are a few people that you can't really miss. And again, if you are really sensitive, maybe that's why the camera froze. Now, if you're really sensitive, maybe it's wise again to just close your eyes for these. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Mr. Helmut Newton. Helmut Newton, I sometimes say when he shoots in color, it should probably be labeled XXX. But because he shoots black and white and it's Helmut Newton, they are just freaking awesome images. Talk about composition. This is one of the things that I always tell students, dare to crop. Now, I don't know if this is the original crop, but this just jumps out at me immediately like, oh, this is a daring crop. I just love this. Now, if the original image has the whole head, I never said this, never. But if this is the original crop, It's freaking awesome. Same here, look at this. One part nude, one part in clothing. It's how do you think of that stuff? And also, don't be afraid to show your backdrops. Nowadays, everything has to be nice and clean. So we have our backdrop. Ooh, we can see a little corner. Just clone it out. Sometimes I hate Photoshop because it gives you options to take stuff out that are so freaking awesome to leave in the image. Don't take them out. Sometimes they take out stuff in images that you really want to take out. So sometimes Photoshop is absolutely awesome. But in this case, you see how much extra atmosphere it gives to show the studio? Why not show your studio a little bit more? Let me do the challenge. This Saturday I have the workshop Coaching and Motion. We're going to create some images that we're going to show you in a moment. This is a very, very famous shot. Often recreated, but I think it's still awesome. David Bowie. Just look at the light on her eye. Do you see that? It drives me nuts that somebody thinks of that. I go like, oh, why didn't I think of this? And I just love old movies. When I look at something like this, I immediately am transported to the 50s. Science fiction movies. It Came from Out of Space, or Space Invaders. The Incredible Melting Man, The 50-Foot Woman. Terrible, terrible movies. But the styling was so absolutely awesome due to that black and white, due to the gritty nature of the movies. He captured it in a photo, and look at it. It's almost like a movie still. Talk about movie stills. This one I'm going to steal, by the way, I think. We still have a lot of film. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Should I try a picture like this with a film roll, or just leave it to Helmut Newton? Also here, look at the poses. What is that backdrop, for example, doing? It's just so boring and so uninteresting, but because it's in his shot, how everything points towards it, it almost draws my attention immediately. But then, I don't know about this image. It's in balance and it's out of balance at the same time. And it just drives me nuts that somebody can literally cram that all into one image. Sorry, wrong expression. Really wrong. Look at this on her face. That pattern. Wow. Now, probably when we shoot something like this with digital in color, it probably is a boring shot. But because of that black and white, because of that gritty nature of black and white, it just looks awesome. This is also a joke that I sometimes make, and a lot of people already know this joke, so bear with me. If you really mess up a shot, it's a little bit out of focus, it's a little bit, well, maybe motion blur. Make it black and white, add a lot of noise, instant art. In this case, it just enhances a wow image to, for me, a totally different level of image. Absolutely stunning. Now remember that this was shot a long time ago, so this is probably, when we do it today, it's already daring, but at that moment in time, man. And of course I wanted to include one color image, because he also shot color. Okay, so now we are going to the really interesting stuff. Let me take a little bit of a sidestep before we do the real stuff. Now, when we started traveling a lot for the photography, I didn't do a lot of street photography for the very simple reason I just didn't do it. Done. I can make excuses for it, but maybe I was lazy, or I just didn't want to get out of the hotel and do something with photography. I just wanted to do sightseeing. I did do sightseeing shots, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I was always carrying a camera. I was always taking pictures, but I never did street photography. And when I started doing street photography, I still remember that the first time I did street photography, I was totally over the moon with some of my images. So I had this little portfolio, and I was too scared to ask Jay Mizell his opinion. Now, Jay Mizell is one of the Kelby 1 instructors, and literally somebody I highly, highly regard as maybe one of the best living street photographers in the world at the moment. And I was so terrified, and actually Scott Kelby said, you can just ask him to look at your portfolio. And I just joined Kelby 1 at that moment, and I was just so new with those guys, and I just didn't have the guts. Long story short, Jay is an amazing guy. He looked at my portfolio, and I still remember what he said. You're lucky you're a good fashion photographer, because this doesn't have the magic that you have in that other stuff. I was going like, okay, so what? And then he started doing like, okay, a building has gesture. And he was always talking about gesture, and gesture this and gesture does. And I was just going like, What the heck does he mean with gesture? Maybe that's a language barrier, but how can a building have gesture? Then I think half a year later, I was in New York and I ended up at his home, still in that bank building, and he just went through a lot of his images that were scattered around in the building, and he showed me stuff that I did wrong. And in all honesty, that was the best lesson I got in my whole life. And the thing that I got out of it was find the stage and the players will come. Sit somewhere that's interesting. Find an interesting wall. Point your camera towards that wall. Blend in with the area where you are, that people don't notice you anymore. And trust me, something will happen at that wall. It can take you an hour. It can take you 2 hours. It will happen. Find the stage and the players will come. Now in Emmeloord it's a little bit more difficult, but in New York, right. The other thing that he told me, and this was my biggest mistake. If you go out and you try to find a beautiful woman, blonde hair, yellow raincoat, red boots, and an umbrella and a dog, how much is the chance that you're going to find her? It's very slim. Now if you go like, okay, I want to find a girl, I want to find red boots and a yellow raincoat, the chances get a lot higher. But don't you realize that while you're looking for the unicorn, that you're missing all those amazing shots around you? Yes. So when you go outside, I don't go hunting anymore. I always called myself the hunter after that. Like in the past, I only did hunting. Now I'm way more relaxed. I'm more like fishing. I find something, oh, I like that Starbucks logo. Would it be cool if somebody just walked under it and I'm just going to sit by that Starbucks logo? And then just wait for people. Maybe somebody comes out with a cup and go like, hey, that's interesting. Maybe there's somebody that walks out with an umbrella and a yellow raincoat and a dog. You never know, right? But the chances are a lot better that I get at least one shot from every location. So that's what Jay actually learned me. And I believe 2 years later, I showed him another portfolio, also with street and travel photography. And the only thing he said, like, you listened, you looked at Robert Doisneau. I'm going to show you in a moment who Robert Testino is. Okay, let's see if there are some questions. Okay, DJ Fobo says, I think I don't get it because art is so subjective, yet everybody talks about it in absolutes. Yes, oh, that's such a good one. This is what I hate. This is what I literally hate about people that teach or people that give lectures. Don't talk in absolutes. You can always talk in an absolute for yourself, like, I like this. But don't force it upon somebody. And I made that mistake when I said, like, if somebody sees it and it doesn't like it, it shouldn't have a heartbeat. So in that case, I was a little bit forcing it upon you. But I think as a photographer, there is no rule set. If you like it, it's a great shot. If somebody else like it, hey, that's a double win, right? Shoot for yourself. And then when people really like it, you will find out what people like. And slowly you will incorporate it into your stuff. Okay, so that was our friend Helmut Newton, of course. Oops. Let's go for something else. Now, I already told you, Robert Doisneau. Talk about street photography. This is the master. In my opinion, it's hard to say, but I think there's nobody better in capturing unique moments in time that will never, ever come back again. Although, sometimes I know it's staged. This one, I don't think it's staged. Now look at this. Robert Doisneau. Ladies and gentlemen, if you never saw his work, find him online. This will blow your mind if you like street photography. Now, this is what I mean. Remember this shot. Look at the lady. Look at the painting in case you didn't see. Remember this shot. Café restaurant. A bride and groom. When you look at the images separate, you just think like, hey, there are weird situations. In a moment, I'm going to show you all the images again with a little bit of knowledge. I'm just going to go through the images for now. Just going to show you the images. But they're cool, right? Beautiful images. And later on, I'm going to point out some stuff. And I wonder if you guys saw it yourself. Okay. Storytelling for me is a huge part of bringing over your message. Now, storytelling, you can set up, so you can make it non-spontaneous, or you can make it spontaneous. Now, in this case, I really don't know what it is, but I'm going to tell you what I think. I think this one is 100% how it happened. This one, compared to the age where this was shot, this could probably be his man cave. I don't want to say what he does there, but probably more than sleep. And seeing in the area where this was shot, in the time period, this might very well be his, well, his place where literally Robert just took the shots. Not staged. I think it's real. Without a doubt, this is real. But look at the picture. Wide angle, from the top down. It's not the way that normally photographers shoot, especially not then. Now, did you notice that the police is actually walking through the mouth of the devil? Now, I'm 100% against any form of discrimination or against police or before police. I'm neutral. I think the police does a really, really good job. They should be there. Are people wrong? Yes, of course. There are always wrong people, right? You can't deny that. But overall, the police, great. We can't live without them. So take the message as you want. I think it's pretty funny. Remember this, I already gave this one away. The painting, the lady, but also that lady. Yeah? Okay. Café, restaurant, and only one guest. Or maybe somebody that just walked by. Or maybe they already hated their marriage and they want to get drunk. You don't know. Look at the kiss. Did you notice that? Did you notice her chain? I really like that shot. Okay, this one. See him looking at the balloons. And her just walking by. Again, it's not a funny story. It's, you see the interaction on the street. So the first time you look at the shot, you go like, yeah, nice. And then you start looking better. You go like, oh, the balloons. And he's looking at, oh, that's interesting. He's looking at the balloons. Now, this image really drew my attention because you can see the couples, but also because, see, she's really just jumping out of the frame. It's literally like, do you want to draw attention to somebody? Do it like that. Very, very dark backdrop, bright white arms and everything, and yeah, it just jumps out. Now, this one, I don't know what to think of this. I think it's pretty funny. It looks like a wedding march or something, but what is this? Do they have to jump over it? It makes me wonder. It's like, what the heck's going on? It makes me go online and find out what's going on there. What is this? Mission succeeded. Here. He's playing, but look at his face. And look at his face. He's looking at the camera and he just looks at the girl, but follow his eyes. He just looks at the music instrument. It's all those angles. Everybody looks somewhere else. It makes it chaotic, and at the same time it gives you something to look at. Okay? This one, everybody's outside and she's dancing inside. That combination of outside, inside, what are they waiting for? Do they want to go inside, or is only the dog want to go inside? It's, again, a story. It makes you wonder what the heck's going on. Look at this. A TV. But did you notice that there's somebody else sitting on the floor and probably watching at the TV? Now, by the way, how do they get the image on that TV? At that time? Do you really think that's a TV? I don't know. This is... I actually start to wonder what's going on there again. Okay. Darts. And just fun. So maybe not something interesting going on. But there we go again. The painting. And somebody else looking at it. And there we go again. Same painting. The woman is looking at that one. And the man, yeah, of course. Ooh, I like that painting, my dear. But don't say that. Okay, now this one. This is where it all boils down. This is so funny if you see it. You see them laughing and going like, oh, did you see that? You see that in her face? So what did they see? Well, they see a woman posing and they see a painter. But look at this. He's not painting her in her coat, he's painting her nude. I think this is staged, come on. Or maybe Annewiek said, maybe she just opened up her coat to when people walk around, but then why are they laughing? It's that combination, see, it's too perfect. And I think what he did, I have to look it up on the internet, by the way, it just dropped in my head what he does. I think he actually staged certain things with hidden cameras. Or maybe not a hidden camera, maybe just plain in the open camera. But just see how people respond. Maybe that's a cool trick to do with fashion photography. With street photography. Just set something up like a trap, let people walk by it and let them look and then take the picture. I don't know, but this is a long time ago. And I just love those images. And I wanted to show you storytelling. Now, of course, when you talk about street photography, Cartier-Bresson, you have to include them. And do I like his shots? Yes and no. I have to include them because I like the shots, but it's not that Robert Doisneau magic for me. It's just great shots. And let's be honest, when you look at this, and of course, you know, the decisive moment, right? The moment it all clicks, John McNally. Decisive moment, of course, Bresson. And yes, he was very on the point. Very, very famous shot. Just love it. This one everybody knows, of course. And this is more for composition. Now, a lot of people go like this shot. Yeah, what's so interesting? I get it. But when you draw the lines of the staircase, you actually end up not with the rule of thirds, but with a way more advanced mathematical sort of composition. And it's spot on. So yeah, you really had a good eye for composition without any doubt, because something like this, you can't stage because the stairs are already there. Of course you can stage the moment, but yeah, I don't think he did. I think this is really the decisive moment, the moment it clicked. Or maybe by 3 or 4 times. I also like this one. And this is something that always happens with people. Like you have a lot of trees. Where do you place your model? If you place your model too more on the side, the trees will grow out of her or his head. If you place her too much in the center, it's too centered. I think he does it perfectly. Not in the center, slightly off, so that the trees in the back are already a little bit more vague. And then growing out of his head isn't a real problem. And you also see a little bit of a halo around him. I think that was done with Dutch and Burn in the dark room. I can't imagine how they did it else. Same here, what's going on? It's that storytelling that Robert Doisneau literally mastered, and with this it's there. And I hope I don't offend anybody, but it doesn't have that magic of Robert Doisneau. Although when you look at something like this, man, this is absolutely awesome. I just love this. Same here. Look at the composition, everything. It's this kind of stuff. This is in my folder, inspiration, for the very simple reason we often walk past things where we just walk past, and we don't look at those things with our photographer's eyes. And what I mean with photographer's eyes is a lot of times we will just look like this. Oh, that's interesting. Let's grab the camera and take a picture. I don't believe that's the right way. I think the best way to shoot something is literally look through your camera. Now, I don't want to advocate that you guys start looking only through your camera while walking around, because you will get in an accident, trust me, or you will break your neck. Don't blame me. But I think it's very important to, if you see something that you think is interesting, and you think there's a lot of junk in the next, it's not interesting because there's a lot of junk on the side, remember that the camera can crop that out. Take the camera, just look at small parts of that scene and find the part of that scene that's interesting. Place your model there, use the leading lines like you saw in this image. It just works way better. And this is literally in my folder, not because I like the image, but because it reminds me that even when you see something that doesn't look interesting, like a staircase, when you look better and you look with your photographer's eyes, you start literally to see all the shapes, all the forms, and it just becomes way more interesting. So he jumps also really nicely out. So yeah, I love his shots, but that's more the street photography part. Now, why did I include that? Because there's something in street photography that's important for fashion photography. Yes, now we are going to the big guys. In the 60s and 70s, the history for fashion photography was literally rewritten by a few guys. The 60s, David Bailey, Richard Avedon. For me, those two are literally insanely influential. Let me start by very simple David Bailey. Now, David Bailey is not the one that influenced me the most. I think that's Avedon. But look at those shots. Black and white. Look at those eyes. This is just literally bizarre. White backdrop. But look at how much shadow there is. I see so many of those white backdrops where there is no shadow, where it's all just blowing out and the front is also totally lit. Don't do that. Don't be afraid of shadows. And of course also color. Now, yeah, not my shots, but not my kind of shots, I mean. But these I absolutely love. And look at the expression. This is what I mean. Get your person in front of the camera, not as a posing person, but as a character. Draw it out of him or her. Make sure that you grab that character. Everybody has a certain thing. Everybody has a certain pose. I do a lot with my hands. So when you photograph me like this, not really natural. I like it because, well, it covers up a lot. But when you photograph me teaching, it's always with my hands. So don't use wide angles when you shoot me. And here, the same thing. Helmut Newton. Yes, he photographed him. Iconic shots. Very, very cool. And he literally shaped that part of history. But now, Richard Avedon. The man for me. Now, flash photography opened up a lot of options, and one of those options was freezing motion. Now, freezing motion before was not really possible for the very simple reason you had big cameras, you shoot f64 or f32 to get a little bit of depth of field. When you shot on f8, it looked absolutely terrible, and the strobes at that point, well, there weren't really any. Fresnels and lighting and whatnot more. And then the strobes and the fiery strobes, so the faster strobes, the smaller cameras, and it opened up a lot. Now, David Bailey, the one before, actually, and this is the part that I forgot to tell you guys, there's a movie called Blow Up from the 70s. It was actually, the photographer in Blow Up was based on David Bailey. Now, I read an interview yesterday, by accident, where he actually tells the interviewer, like, the interview goes like, hey, did you know that the movie Blow Up was inspired by you? No, everybody knows that, right? So he was going like, yeah, I know, they actually asked me to play the part. So the interviewer was going like, oh, why didn't you do it? Well, because I can't read or write. I believe he can't read or write. I don't know what he said. Or I can't remember. Oh, yeah, this was what he said. Don't make him too bad. He can't remember anything. So if you give him a line, he won't remember it. So they went for another actor. In the end, they asked him, like, did you like how he played you? And he was going like, he was too posh. So David Bailey is, I think in his interviews, he comes over as really into his work, but a little bit more distant. Richard Avedon, I think in that same period, did something that David Bailey didn't do. And that was capturing a lot of motion. And Bailey, of course, also did it because he used strobe photography. But I think Avedon just pushed it way, way over the limit for what was possible at that moment, creating images like this. This is hugely inspiring for me because these images are all the images that I literally try to recreate when I do jump photography or motion photography. These are the kinds of images we're going to shoot on Saturday during the workshop. The coaching and motion. Just love the elephants. And of course you all know these images, right? So I tried to also include some images that were a little bit more not known. Just look at the hair, man. And remember, this was a time before Photoshop, so this is real. This is not Photoshop. Here too, it's like we're now shooting with 100 megapixel cameras. And we don't get detail like this, that jumping out. It's really, really nice. Okay, somebody says my mic is too hot. It's piping and breaking up. I don't know why, but I don't get any other complaints about this. So anybody else with my mic too hot? 1, 2. I can try to do it a little bit lower for you guys. Let me do it like this. I hope this is better. Okay. So I really like those shots. And of course we all know this. Or I hope you know this. Twiggy. So really iconic images, but mostly the motion, the jumping. I really love that from Avedon. I could be, I'm in doubt by one or two images, by the way. So I got them from the internet. I'm totally honest with you guys. I have the books, but I never scanned the books, of course. And I'm doubting in one of the images. So if that's not an Avedon image, don't blame me. Okay, and finally, because of course after Avedon, we have to do two more things. So we had that motion, and that motion is really important for me in a shot because it gives you that extra swoon in an image. It gives you that extra, little bit of extra. So, lighting. You know that I love lighting, right? You know that I absolutely love to play around with shadows, with small accent lights. Where does that come from? Let me do a sidestep. There's a studio. This is not really a photographer, but it's a studio. Harcourt. There's a little bit of a weird story, I think, and I hope I recollect this correctly from the documentary. This is a studio. If you're famous, you can take your portrait there for free or very, very cheap. If you are a normal person like me and you have to pay 900 or 1400 euros. That's a shitload of money. And I saw in the documentary that there was a lady and her daughter who actually took the picture there. And 2 or 3 weeks later, and I don't know why it's 2 or 3 weeks later, because you take the picture, it's all digital, right? You have to retouch it a little bit, and then you can deliver it to your client. So why does it take 3 or 4 weeks? But anyway, 3 or 4 weeks later, they get in this big, big box. Well, for 900 euros, you better get a big box. They open it, and they start to cry. Not because of the picture. Look at the logo. And I was just going like, if you can manage that, if you can pull that off, that people start to cry because you get a picture with their logo on it, that's insane, right? But hey, they really worked up a cult following. And let's be honest, this is how they shoot. It's really, really beautiful work. And I tried to copy this a few times, and not unsuccessfully, I have to be honest. I come close. Some people say actually pretty much dead on. I don't agree because there's still a lot of the roughness in this image that I miss. My images are a little bit more cleaner, and I still try to get that roughness in. Believe it or not, that's pretty difficult to get the roughness in. Nice and easy is easy. Get that roughness in the images, that's a little bit more difficult because they use a lot of flags. So you don't use the whole light source, but just parts of it. That's pretty tricky to do. Okay, but Harcourt is great. But a lot of people think that Harcourt is the look from Harcourt. And that's not true. There's one more photographer I want to talk about. And that photographer may or may not be the one that is actually, in my work, the huge inspiring, without you guys actually seeing that I'm using his stuff. And that's George Hurrell. Harcourt and George Hurrell, look at the difference, or maybe not. This, for me, is absolute photography. This is art with a big A. How controlling, or how you can control your shadows like this, with the techniques they used at that moment, no reviews, no Photoshop, no previews. You get a Polaroid, which is slightly different from the film. You shoot it, you develop it, you use dodge and burn to create your image. You get stuff like this. This is not fair. This is a level that most photographers nowadays, with all techniques, previews, digital cameras, Photoshop, everything else, and they still can't pull this stuff up. For the very simple reason, what you see here is 100,000% light control. But most of all, controlling your model. Look at the expression, look at everything in these images. It's like there is no camera. She's looking straight at you, and look at the catch lights. No Photoshop, no previews, only a few exposures per roll. And I don't think those models were there for a day or 2 hours, probably only a few minutes. And just look at those images. Again, it's very, very taste dependent, but for me, this is art. Literally art. So George Hurrell, without any doubt, one of the main influences, although you don't see it in a lot of my work. Okay, so why don't you see it in a lot of my work? Everything that I showed you today is all part of that inspiration part. So what do I get from which? I love my color use. That's without any doubt David LaChapelle. I absolutely love motion. That's without any doubt Everdon. But I also sometimes like to push it a little bit. That's without any doubt Helmut Newton. And sometimes you just want it flat and jumping out with color. Jill Greenberg. And you find all these photographers in your style. Now throw them all together and you get something a little bit like what I'm going to show you now. So let me just go here. Galleries. Go to portfolio. I'm going to switch over in a second, don't worry. Let's go for fashion. Okay. Colors, right? I'm not going to show you the images large, but just look at the colors. You see this? It's not like Jill Greenberg. It's stolen. And I don't really like those. Those are the ones that will probably be taken out when I take images on that same background again. But see the color, it just jumps out. This is literally inspired by Jill Greenberg. It's different, but it's still inspired. Remember from the top down, wide angles, it's inspired. Remember all those colors, live music, this is a model shot, inspired by the live music. And you can go through all those images, the backlighting. But also when you go to, for example, heroes and villains, let me see where it is, heroes and villains, accent lighting, strong backlighting, make this black and white, it screams for me inspired by Helmut Newton. Maybe you don't see it, that's okay. In my mind, this shot would have never been taken if I didn't look at Helmut Newton, for the very simple reason, I shot it like this. And then I decided, you know what, Helmut Newton had that sometimes that light from the back and then overblow. Let's just look at it from that side. And also because he has a leather face mask, just reminded me a little bit of Helmut Newton. And I didn't want to keep it in the same color, but I didn't want to make it black and white because then it just screams Helmut Newton inspired. So I thought, you know what, let's not make it black and white, let's make it monotone blue. Why not? And then just bring back a little bit of the red. You see that everything we do is inspired also by stage lighting, smoke, storytelling, making a model jump out, all that stuff. So just make sure that you also look at other photographers. Now, when I teach the workshops, I often ask like, which photographers inspired you? And it's almost shocking that most people will go like, oh yeah, I like Erwin Olaf, or yeah, and then they know maybe one or two, and I just go like, if I love playing guitar, do you really think there's only one guitar player that inspired me? No, I like blues, I like metal, I like Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Brian May, Joe Satriani, the list goes on and on. So why when you ask somebody about what's your favorite photographer, they really have to think long. And they don't have to think long because which one, they actually have to think about, hey, which photographer, yeah. And there was actually this thing that we always did when we had new interns. They would come in and the first thing I asked them like, hey, name me 5 awesome fashion photographers. Sometimes they started out with, you? I go like, no, that's wrong. There's this Dutch guy, Erwin, yeah, probably Olaf. Yeah, and Erwin Olaf is the most famous Dutch photographer, I think. And then I go like, okay, so you want to do fashion photography, right? So Vogue, you know Vogue? Yeah, I know the magazine Vogue. Okay, so Mario Testino, who's that? Like every single cover, this is where it goes wrong. Be inspired, and if you don't know the names of the photographers, it doesn't matter. Make a folder on your hard drive in Lightroom like I have and copy every single image in there that inspires you. Every single image that jumps out to you like, hey, I really like this. I don't know why, but I like it. I do the same thing with music. I record stuff on my phone, little riffs, little rhythms, and then sometimes I listen back to it and I go like, oh, but I can change this. I'm now working on something, for example, inspired by Dracula. Very old movie from the 30s, so I can use the samples for free. It never started that way, but if you create something, you have to realize that you're always starting with a blank canvas, but you never do. Because if you start with a blank canvas, it will stay blank. It has to be up here. Here has to be that chaotic mix of everything, the witch's cauldron, where everything just boils together and just mixes. And then at one point, it just blows up on that canvas. And that's where all those inspirations come together. So make sure that you also make your folders with inspiration. Okay, I hope the audio was okay now, Sheriff. Because I didn't hear any other complaints. So we're going to check if the audio is okay later on after the recording. But I hope it was fun today. This was a slightly shorter episode because I don't want to talk 2 hours about inspiration. I could talk for 4 hours about it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Now, there's one thing that I do want to share with you guys. We really appreciate, of course, a like, but also a subscribe. It's very important for us that we get subscribes. Even if you don't like the channel, just subscribe. Now, if you think like, hey Frank, you give a lot of information about photography and also digital classroom is awesome. I love it. Do remember that these are free. These are totally free live streams. Just go online, go to videos, and there you find the real instructional material. They go in way more in depth. They give you way more information. They're much better filmed, and we just offer them for a really, really nice price. Annewiek, do you also want to say something?
Yeah, there were some questions on
Oh, there were some
Facebook.
questions on Facebook. Okay, let me switch over then to our questions. Do you do night photography? I don't do a lot of night photography because often I'm asleep at night.
Also, it's very cloudy.
It's very clouded sometimes. I always say I would love to. I have some tripods here that I still have to test, so who knows? I love the universe and I would love to take pictures, of course, of the night sky and those beautiful Milky Ways. We live on an industrial area, so there is not a lot of light pollution, so why the heck don't I do it? Annewiek, why don't I do night photography?
Because I sleep at
Because she sleeps and she has to help me. Okay, how about Peter Lindbergh? I think I know who asked that question. I do like Peter Lindbergh, but it's not that huge of an inspiring for me. So I have to choose which ones. Now, I did leave out, for example, also guys like Jay Mizell. For the very simple reason, I'm in the same team with him. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't inspire me. In fact, for street photography, oh man, he learned me everything that I know, I always say. And of course, you learn yourself also stuff, but he was a huge inspiring. Think about guys like
Scott Kelby.
Scott Kelby, of course, for Photoshop. Or think about guys like Glenn Dewis for his compositing work. And there are so many guys that inspire you.
Girls.
And girls. Yeah, think about Kaylee Greer, dog breed photography. Wow! If you wanted to see really, really cool photography about dogs, dog breed photography, Kaylee Greer. It's insane what she does. She even has her own show on Animal Planet.
Yeah, Lindsay Adler.
Lindsay Adler, a fashion photographer. Wow, it's just, when I look at Lindsay, I just want to throw my camera away and just go like, yeah, Lindsay, there you go, just forget about it. In the Netherlands, Josephine Hoekstra. Hoekstra, right? I say that correctly. Beautiful work with gels, just very amazing. If you ever go to a trade show and I'm there and Josephine is there, make sure you visit us both because Josephine creates beautiful, beautiful images. It's also insane. So there are so many people that you could mention, and Peter Lindbergh is without any doubt one, but there are so many more, and I had to make a selection. Okay, so on October 22, 23 and 24, we are in Brussels for photo days. I will be on the booth of a large printer, VDAC, and VDAC actually hosts us in a small studio. So we have a nice space where we can actually take some images. And the cool thing about this is we're going to take the images, I'm going to retouch them on the spot, I'm going to print them out on a big printer, I'm going to sign it, and I'm going to give them away to one of the visitors. So let's make sure that you guys are there if you want to be there. That's weird. Anyway, 22, 23, 24 of October is Photo Days in Brussels. And then in the Netherlands, in Best, we are on December 11 and 12 for the Winter Fair. We already did the Summer Fair and it's Photo Fair. And it's absolutely amazing. Very good organization, really great workshops. And Winter Fair is going to be very special because we are planning something really special also. Let me see. Apple is one and poo and it's oh, this is something else,
My
Annewiek.
grocery list.
That's your grocery list. I was going like, why should you guys need potatoes? Potatoes. Okay, so anyway, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast about inspiration. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot more. But most of all, keep yourself
There is
safe.
One thing,
There's
I
one
would
thing.
say we don't know about the next one, the next digital classroom. It's because I have a doctor's appointment and I don't know how that's.
Oh, for your
gonna
broken
end
leg.
out.
Don't make them too scared. It's for your broken leg.
Yeah, but I'm healed now. But
They have to determine if the plate goes out or
Yeah.
stays in. So there's nothing
So,
serious about it,
no,
because you
I'm
just
good.
hold my arm and go like, we have a doctor's appointment now. There's nothing wrong,
There's nothing wrong. Sorry.
but we just have to look at the plate. So we don't know if we have a digital classroom there, but we want to do digital classroom slightly different. So live shoots, okay, we're still going to do it, but maybe you also want me seeing interviewing colleagues, interviewing maybe something about styling, interviewing retouchers, maybe calling people in the show and having a whole interview with them. Those will be probably pre-recorded, but anyway. Do you want to see that kind of stuff in digital classroom? Let me know in the comments below, and we will try to incorporate it. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. Stay safe and get your vaccine if you didn't already. And if you unfollow me for that mention, be my guest. But we want to stay safe and we want to protect other people. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. See you again next time. Bye bye.